Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Cavanaugh's Corner. Today on the show I'm going to be talking about the remaining 4 movies in this Fast and Furious 8 movie collection on 4K. The movies so far have been pretty impressive. The first 4 films all looked pretty good with the exception of Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift. That one there, they really seemed to drop the ball on the transfer. It's almost like they just DNR'd the entire movie. The audio on that one was still, pretty good, but the movie so far, the first 2 and the 4th film all look and sound, excellent. They all were pretty great. But that 3rd movie there, they really didn't do too good of a job with it, which is really too bad because it's an entertaining movie enough. It's not the best in the series in my opinion, but it's still an entertaining film, but they really didn't do that good of a job with the transfer on that one. The standard Blu-ray is actually a better looking film in my opinion. But today I'm going to be talking about the remaining 4 films and kind of what they look like, how they sound, and just how they did with the transfer. Now, the nice thing is about these movies is that the remaining 4 films all have certain things going on with them, which I really like. The first one we're going to talk about is actually the one that's on the screen behind me here, which is Fast 5. And this is actually pretty cool. I'm going to show you the booklet here that has the films in it. There's Fast 5, Fast and Furious 6, Furious 7, and The Fate of the Furious, and there's the bonus disc, which I'll get to near the end. But Fast 5 is actually probably my favorite of all the films. This movie is a lot of fun, and I have to say, this 4K transfer was incredible. This was a very crisp and clear looking movie. Again, not really a lot of grain, if any at all. It's a very, very, very crisp picture. And that also goes for the remaining movies I'm going to talk about here. The picture quality on all of them, all the movies from here on out, are all pretty extraordinary. They're all pretty good. There's a little bit of softness in Fast and Furious 6, which is the one after this. But Fast 5 looked and sounded amazing. The HDR10 on the disc here really does a lot in terms of bringing out colors, bringing out just how beautiful this movie is. Most of the movie is, in very bright settings, and, you really get a higher level of detail on this movie than you do with the previous Blu-rays. It really brings out a lot of details, a lot of colors. It's very, very beautiful. I wouldn't call it reference quality, but it is extremely clear, extremely crisp, and I love the way this movie looked. It makes a very entertaining and fun movie even better. The audio quality on this one as well was extraordinary. It's another DTS-X mix, and it is very, very, very loud. This is a loud mix. It's also very detailed, very atmospheric. You get a lot of use of the overheads. The surrounds are used perfectly well. Dialogue is crisp and clear. You put this thing in, you really don't have to turn it up at all. It is a very, very good sound mix, and I really enjoyed it. Musical score as well also sounds great in that one. Fast and Furious 6, there's some weird stuff going on with this one, and I want to talk about it with you guys. So, Fast and Furious 6, yet again, pretty crisp picture. However, the black levels on the disc are a little wonky, and I was very surprised about that. The black levels on this Fast and Furious 6 4K were a little messy here and there. Some of the darker scenes, and there are more darker scenes in Fast and Furious 6 than there are in Fast 5, but the darker scenes seem to have an issue with black levels here and there. They get a little murky. They're not exactly perfect. And I think that might have been because that disc was made a little bit earlier than the other Fast and Furious movies as far as I can remember. I think that was one of the ones that they re-released when 4K was still kind of new. I think it's an older release. If I'm wrong, please correct me in the comments. But I think that disc was made a little bit earlier than some of the other ones I reviewed. It's still a very good picture, though. Again, in my opinion, it's still a good step up from the Blu-ray simply because of the HDR10. That really brings out more details, more colors, much more vibrant picture. The other thing I want to mention with that movie is that the sound mix on it does not seem to be as atmospheric as something like Fast 5 or the first two Fast and Furious films that I reviewed earlier. It's not a quiet mix. It's not like a Disney mix like I've reviewed with some of the Marvel films in the past. But it is still a fairly decent DTS-X surround sound mix, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. I'd give it a passing review. It's not a terrible disc. It has some flaws, but it's not awful. I still think it's a step up from the Blu-ray, and it's not, again, it's nothing to sneeze at. It's a very good transfer of the movie. Now, Furious 7, we get kind of back in terms of the Fast 5 picture quality. Furious 7 looks outstanding. It looks amazing. I didn't pick up any issues with the sound mix in terms of Furious 7. I thought that really sounded incredible. Again, I felt that it was a very good mix in terms of use of overheads. There's a couple scenes where there's a helicopter flying overhead and in the distance, and you can kind of pick it up in the overheads. Again, audio very clear, music sounds good, but the picture quality in Furious 7 is almost flawless in my opinion. I really like the look of this movie. It's definitely not my favorite in terms of the Fast and Furious movies, but it really has this unbelievable sheen to it. It looks like they shot it in like a vacuum. It's unbelievably clean looking. In terms of comparison to the standard Blu-ray, I'd say it's not a massive step up, but it is a massive step up in terms of colors. It's not a huge overhaul. None of these movies are like a giant overhaul from the Blu-ray, except for the first two Fast and Furious movies. Those were like total overhauls. These ones here are more like massive improvements, but still they keep the same kind of color palette. Furious 7, however, they really did a good job with making it look unbelievably pristine. I thought it looked incredible, and the sound mix I thought was also very well done. Now, when we get to the final films thus far, I'm sure there's going to be more of them, but with The Fate of the Furious, this is the only disc in the set that has Dolby Vision. And the Dolby Vision on this disc is kind of an interesting thing. It's kind of a mixed bag. It's not perfect. I think it is a step up from HDR10 for most discs, but the Dolby Vision on this disc really doesn't do a whole heck of a lot for the movie. The movie still looks very good, crisp and clear. I thought it, again, it looks fantastic. But in terms of really giving you a more vibrant picture, the only part in the movie that I really thought looked extremely good was the opening scenes of the film. That was it. Anything else looked pretty much like a standard 4K Blu-ray. The Dolby Vision is really not punching it up very much for that film. Again, does it look good? Yeah, the movie looks great. I think it's fantastic. But in terms of picture quality, I think, honestly, the color palette of that movie, since they were going for like a darker color palette, I don't think it's as vibrant or as clear as some of the other movies. It's kind of a darker film in most points, but I think overall the movie looks great, and the audio quality on that one was also really good. There's one scene in particular that I really enjoyed, where Jason Statham is having a fight in an airplane, and it's kind of like a funny thing because the airplane is kind of dipping and they're flying all over the place during the fight scene, and I thought it was actually kind of a great scene. But that was the one scene where I thought the DTS-X really kicked into overdrive, and other than that, it was really mainly used for like sound effects and things like that. But In terms of atmospheric use, that one, again, it's not too bad. It's not as great as some of the other ones in the series, but it was still very nice to have, and the movie looks great, and again, sounds great. Just that Dolby Vision really doesn't do a whole heck of a lot to really make it, you know, extraordinary. It's just, again, it's a very good transfer. Now, the other thing I want to mention before I get to that bonus disc is that most of these movies now, Fast 5, Fast and Furious 6, and I think actually, yeah, Furious 7, and I think Fate of the Furious, yeah, they all, yeah, pretty much all of them now. All of these ones have a director's cut, like an extended version, except for Fate of the Furious. I don't think Fate of the Furious has an extended cut. No, it does. It does have an extended cut. My bad, sorry. But yeah, Fast 5 all the way to Fate of the Furious, they all have an extended cut. And the thing that I think is nice is that the extended cut is on the 4K for all these discs. And I really like that. I thought that was actually pretty cool. Again, for the sake of reviewing these movies, I basically only watch the theatrical versions. But if you want to watch the extended cuts, you know, they're there on the disc, and I think, you know, again, in certain cases, those extended cuts are, you know, they put some useful things back in. For the most part, for me, the theatrical versions are the way to go. They really don't add anything extremely mind-blowing to me, but I think they're there, they're nice, I'm glad that they have them, and, you know, again, how can you go wrong? Now, the bonus disc on this one, again, it's kind of a, you know, again, it's nothing crazy. This disc, it's a standard DVD. I don't know if you can pick it up on the camera there, but it's just a standard DVD, so again, it's not going to look that great. It's really just a bunch of like little featurettes and some shooting diaries from director Justin Lin, who did a few of the films that I reviewed here in this part. And it's nice to have, but again, it's just an added bonus feature. The other discs, again, all the movies I reviewed in this set, they all have their standard Blu-ray included, and that Blu-ray does have a bunch of special features on it as well. So really, I mean, the movies, I mean, this set, it's a great set. If you can pick this up at a good price, it's well worth it. I recommend it. I highly recommend it if you really enjoy these movies. Overall, you know, there were a few movies here and there that were kind of a mixed bag in terms of video quality, but for the most part, I think it's an excellent box set, and it's definitely worth the money if you can pick it up at a good price. So, thank you so much for coming back to Cavanaugh's Corner. I greatly appreciate you coming back to the channel. If you like this video and you want to see more videos like it, hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel so I can bring you more content like this. I'm Andrew Cavanaugh. Thank you again, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.